When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth?
If I hold this too high, they'll think that we're supporting.
David, you get on the coffee. We don't want to see you up there being all jittery.
All right. Who should open us in prayer? Kip's going to open us in prayer. Hey, Kip, would you want to open us up in prayer before we start in a minute or two?
Sure.
Cool. I'll bring it to you. Boker Tov, everyone. Good morning. As you can tell, I'm not Rabbi Steve Berkson. My name is David, and Rabbi Steve has to attend to something, and he is our Nasi, so we definitely must respect that. So I will be helping facilitate the Torah study reading this morning, the first day of our readings through the book of Deuteronomy. For all those who have been to a Tuesday night Torah study before, this will be something very similar, but way more fun because we can interact face-to-face instead of through text. And so what we'll do, we'll start with an opening prayer by Mr. Kip Rudio, and then we will call up the readers one by one, say the traditional blessing over them, they will read, and then we will cycle through. So we have about 14 readings, so we have our first 5 readers. So if you're wanting to, then you can kind of go to the queue over here where we have Nate, Robert, and Gwen, and then we'll just keep cycling everybody up. And then at the end, we will do the Midrash of questions, comments, and discussing the passages that we read. And so, yeah, thank you so much for your patience. And here's Kip Rudio for the opening prayer.
Avinu Makeno, we bless you and we thank you for allowing us to be here today in fellowship with our brothers and our sisters, and that we ask that our hearts be open, and our eyes and our ears as we get prepared to do this reading of your word this morning, that we may learn what you want us to learn, so that we know how to be closer to you. We thank you that you've allowed us all to be here in fellowship on your days, that you've commanded us to come together. And we just ask that everyone be safe. That everyone be safe. And we thank you so much for all of your blessings through all of our days. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kip. Okay, so we will start with the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy. And just another note, you're welcome to bring up your own Bible if you'd like to read out of your own. Otherwise, we have the large print ISR up here, so either way works. So first up, we have Dennis, who will start off the readings. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Dennis, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, Dennis, you're going to take us from Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 18 in chapter 1. Thank you.
Okay. That's cool. All right. Stop praying quick. I don't screw this up too bad. All right. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan in the wilderness, in the desert plain opposite Suf, between Paran and Tufel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab, 11 days' journey from Horeb, by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. And it came to be in the 40th year, in the 11th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, that Moshe spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahweh had commanded him concerning them. After he had stricken Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and Og, sovereign of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth at Edrei, beyond the Jordan, in the land of Moab. Moshe undertook to declare this Torah, saying, Yahweh our Elohim spoke to us in Horeb, saying, You have dwelt long enough at this mountain. Turn and set out on your way, and go into the mountains of the Amorites, and to the neighboring places in the desert plain, in the mountains, and in the low country, and in the Negeb, and on the sea coast, to the land of Canaanites, and to Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land, which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their seed after them. And I spoke to you at that time, saying, I am unable to bear you by myself. Yahweh your Elohim has increased you, and see, you are today as numerous as the stars of the heavens. Yahweh Elohim of your fathers is going to add to you 1,000 times more than you are, and bless you as he has spoken to you. How do I bear your pressure and your burden and your strife by myself? Choose men wise and understanding and known to your tribes, and let me appoint them as your heads. And you answered me and said, The word which you have spoken to us to do is good. And I took the herds of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, leaders of thousands, and leaders of hundreds, and leaders of 50s, and leaders of 10s, and officers for your tribes. And I commanded your judges at that time, saying, When hearing between your brothers, judge righteously between a man and his brother, or the stranger who is with him. Do not show partiality in right ruling, hear the small as well as the great. Do not be afraid of anyone's face, for the right rulings belong to Elohim. And the case which is too hard for you, bring it to me, and I shall hear it. And I commanded you at that time all the words which you should do.
Thank you, Dennis. That was fantastic. All right, next up, we have Arthur. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Arthur, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Arthur, you're going to take us from verse 19 to verse 36, still in chapter 1.
Then we set out from Horeb and went through all that great and awesome wilderness which you saw on the way to the mountains of the Amorites, as Yahweh our Elohim has commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said to you, you have come to the mountains of the Amorites, which Yahweh our Elohim is giving us. See, Yahweh your Elohim has set the land before you. Go up and possess it, as Yahweh Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you. Do not fear nor be discouraged. And all of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us, and let them search out the land for us, and bring back the word to us of the way by which we should go up, and of the cities into which we would come. And the matter was good in my eyes, so I took 12 of your men, 1 man from each tribe. And they turned and went up into the mountains and came to the Wadi Eshcol and spied it out. And they took some of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down to us. And they brought back word to us, saying, the land which Yahweh our Elohim is giving us is good. But you would not go up and rebelled against the mouth of Yahweh your Elohim, and grumbled in your tents, and said, because Yahweh was hating us, he has brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim to give us into the hand of the Amorites, to destroy us. Where are we going to? Our brothers have made our hearts melt, saying, the people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to the heavens, and we saw the sons of Anakim there too. Then I said to you, have no dread or fear of them. Yahweh your Elohim was going before you. He does fight for you, according to all he did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes. And in the wilderness where you saw how Yahweh your Elohim was born, has borne you, as the man bears his son, in all the way that you went until you came to this place. Yet in this matter you are putting no trust in Yahweh your Elohim, who is going before you in the way to seek out a place for you to pitch your tents, to show you the way that you should go, in fire by night and in a cloud by day. And Yahweh heard the voice of your words and was wroth, and took an oath, saying, not one of these evil generations shall see the good of the land which I swore to give to your fathers, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, he shall see it, and to him and his children I shall give the land on which he walked, because he followed Yahweh completely.
Amen. Thank you, Arthur. Next up we have Linda. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Linda, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Linda, you're going to take us now into chapter 2, from verses 37 in verse 1 to 7 in verse 2. Chapter 2, sorry.
And Yahweh was enraged with me for your sake, saying, you do not go in there either. Yehoshua the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall go in there. Strengthen him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit. And your little ones and your children, who say you are a prey, who today have no knowledge of good and evil, they are going in there, and to them I give it, and they are to possess it. But you turn and take your journey into the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds. Then you answer and said to me, we have sinned against Yahweh. We ourselves are going up, and we shall fight as Yahweh Elohim has commanded us. And when each one of you has girded on his battle gear, you are ready to go up into the mountain. And Yahweh said to me, say to them, do not go up nor fight, for I am not in your midst, lest you be smitten before your enemies. So I spoke to you, but you would not listen, and rebelled against the mouth of Yahweh, and acted proudly, and went up into the mountain. Then the Amorites who dwelt in that mountain came up against you, and chased you as bees do, and drove you back from Seir to Hormah. And you returned and wept before Yahweh, but Yahweh would not listen to your voice, nor give ear to you. So you dwelt in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you dwell. Then we turned and set out into the wilderness, the way of the Sea of Reeds, as Yahweh spoke to me, and we went round Mount Seir many days. Yahweh spoke to me, saying, you have gone around that mountain long enough turn northward, and commanded the people, saying, "You are about to pass over to the border of your brothers, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir, and they are afraid of you, so be on your guard. Do not strive with them, for I do not give you any of their land, nor not so much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. What food you buy from them with silver you shall eat, and also what water you buy from them with silver you shall drink. For Yahweh your Elohim has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He has known your wandering through this great wilderness. These 40 years Yahweh your Elohim has been with you, and you have not lacked any matter."
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Linda. Next up, we have Ali. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Ali, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, still in chapter 2, verses 8 to 25.
Okay. And when we pass beyond our brothers, the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, and when we pass beyond our brothers, the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir, away from the way of the desert plain, away from Elat and Etzion and Geber, we turned and passed over by way of the wilderness of Moab. And Yahweh said to me, "Do not distress Moab, nor stir yourself up against them in battle, for I do not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession. The Emites had dwelt there formerly, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. They were also reckoned as Rephaites, like the Anakim, but the Moabites call them Emites. And the Horites formerly dwelt in Seir, but the descendants of Esau dispossessed them and destroyed them from before them and dwelt in their place, as Israel did to their land of their possession which Yahweh gave them. Now rise up and pass over the Wadi Zered." So we passed over the Wadi Zered. And the time we took to come from Kadesh Barnea until we passed over the Wadi Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of battle was consumed from the midst of the camp, as Yahweh had sworn to them. And also the hand of Yahweh was against them, and to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. And it came to be, when all the men of battle had finally perished from among the people, that Yahweh spoke to me, saying, "This day you are to pass over at Ar, the boundary of Moab. And when you come near the children of Ammon, do not distress them, nor stir yourself up against them. For I do not give you any of the land of the children of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession." That was also reckoned as a land of the Rephaites. Rephaites formerly dwelt there, but the Ammonites call them Zamzumim, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. But Yahweh destroyed them before them, and they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, as he had done for the descendants of Esau, who dwelt in Seir when he destroyed the Horites from before them. They dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, even to this day. And the Awim, who dwelt in villages as far as Azah, and the Kaphtorim, who came from Kaphtor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place. Arise, set out and pass over the Wadi Arnon. See, I have given it into your hand, Sichon, the Amorite, sovereign of Heshbon and his land. Begin to possess it, and stir up yourself against him in battle. This day I begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the peoples under all the heavens, who when they hear the report of you shall tremble and shake because of you.
Amen. Thank you, Ali. Next up, we have Steve. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve, you're going to take us from verse 26 in chapter 2 to verse 11 in chapter 3. Just to know, we have still a couple more reader spots available. There's 5 chairs here that are all filled, but if you want to read, I think we have probably about 3 or 4. You can just take a seat in the front row here, and then we'll get you up when there's a space. All right, so Steve, 26 to 3:11.
Okay. 6. And then I sent out messengers from the wilderness of Kormath to Cheyenne, sovereign of Hebron, with the words of peace, saying, let me pass over through your land on the highway. I shall go on the highway and turn neither right or left. What food shall you sell me for me? What food you sell me for silver I shall eat, and what water you give me for silver I shall drink. Only let me pass over on foot as a descendant of Esau, who dwelt in Seir, and to the Moabites who dwelt in Ar did for me until I pass over the Jordan to the land of Yahweh, our Elohim is giving us. But Sion, sovereign of Hebron, would not let us pass over, for Yahweh, your Elohim, hardened his spirit and strengthened his heart to give him into your hand as it is this day. And Yahweh said to me, see, I have begun to give Sion and his land over to you. Begin to process in order to possess the land. And Sion and his people came out against us to fight at the Yarhats. And Yahweh our Elohim gave him over us, so we struck him and his sons and all the people, and we took his cities at the time, and we put the men, women, and little ones of every city under the ban, and we left none remaining. Only the livestock we took as plunder for ourselves, and the spoils of the cities which we captured from Aurora, who is on the edge of the Wadi, and Arnon, the city that is by the Wadi, as far as Galad. There was not one city too high for us. Yahweh our Elohim gave all to us. Only you did not go near the land of the children of Ammon, anywhere along the Wadi Yarabokol. Sorry, I'm bad on these names, guys. Or the city of the mountains, where anywhere Yahweh our Elohim has commanded us. Then we turned and went away to Bashan, and Og, sovereign of Bashan, came out against us, and he and all his people to battle at Edrei. And Yahweh said to me, do not fear him, for I give him and all his people and his land to your hand. And all you shall do to him is you did to Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who dwelt at Hebron. So Yahweh your Elohim also gave into your hand Og, sovereign of Bashan, with all his people, and we struck him until he had no survivors remaining. And we captured all the cities at that time that were not a city which he did not take from them, 60 cities, and all of the district of Argob, the reign of Og in Bashan. And all these cities were fenced with high walls, great and bars, beside a great many unwalled towns. And we put them under the ban, as we did in Sihon, sovereign of Heshbon, putting the men and the women and the children in every city under the ban. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. And at that time we took the land from the hand of the two sovereigns of the Amorites that was beyond the Jordan for the Wadi Arman and the Mount Huron. And Tishadams call Huron Sidon, and the Amorites call it Seir. All the cities of the plain of Galaad and Bashan, as far as Salhak, and Edom, cities of the reign of Og in Bashan, for only Og, sovereign of Bashan, was left at the remnant of the Euphrates. See, his bedstead was on the iron bedstead. It is not a Rahaba of the children of Aaron, 9 cubits in its length, and 4 cubits width, according to the cubit of men.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. And for those who've been to the Tuesday night Torah study, for some reason, Mr. Waffle always gets the passages with the hardest names, and he always does a great job. But it seems to be a constant theme throughout. All right, next up we have Nate. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Nate, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Nate, chapter 3, verses 12 to 29.
Sure. I'm grandpa now. Got to read bigger letters. 12. There we go. And this land, which we possessed at that time from Aurora, which is by the Wadi Arnon, and half the mountains of Gilead and its cities, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites, and the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the reign of Og, I gave to half the tribe of Manasseh, all the district of Argob, with all Bashan, called the land of the Rephaites. Yair, son of Manasseh, had taken all the district of Argob, as far as the border of the Gershurites and the Maacathites, and called them after his own name, the Bashan of Hawath, Yair, to this day. And to Machir I gave Gilad, and to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave from Gilad as far as the Wadi Arnon, the middle of the wadi as the border, as far as the Wadi Yabak, the border of the children of Ammon, and the desert plain with the Yarden as the border, from Kinnereth as far as the sea of the Arba, the salt sea, below the slopes of Pisgah on the east. And I commanded you at that time, saying, Yahweh your Elohim has given you this land to possess. All the sons of might pass over armed before your brothers, the children of Yisrael. But let your wives and your little ones and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, stay in your cities which I have given you, until Yahweh has given rest to your brothers as to you. And they also possess the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving them beyond the Yarden. Then you shall return, each man to his possession, which I have given you. And I commanded Yehoshua at that time, saying, your eyes have seen all that Yahweh your Elohim has done to these two sovereigns. Yahweh does the same to all the reigns which you are passing over. Do not fear them, for Yahweh your Elohim himself fights for you. And I pleaded with Yahweh at that time, saying, O Master Yahweh, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For who is a mighty one in the heavens or on the earth who does according to your works and according to your might? I pray, let me pass over and see the good land beyond the Yarden, this good hill country and Lebanon. But Yahweh was enraged with me for your sake, and would not listen to me. And Yahweh said to me, enough of that. Speak no more to me about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and look with your eyes, for you do not pass over this Yarden. But command Yehoshua, and strengthen him, and make him brave. For he shall pass over before this people, and cause them to inherit the land which you see. And we dwelt in the valley opposite Baeth Peor.
Amen. Thank you, Nate. Perfect. Next up, we have Robert. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Robert, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, you're going to, in chapter 4, take us from verses 1 through 19. Can you use that one or this one? Robert. You going to use this? Yeah, okay.
And now, O Yisrael, listen to the laws and the right rulings which I am teaching you to do, so that you live and shall go in and possess the land which Yahweh Elohim of your fathers is giving you. Do not add to the word which I commanded you, and do not take away from it, so as to guard the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, which I am commanding you. Your eyes have seen what Yahweh did at Baal Peor, and Yahweh your Elohim has destroyed from your midst all the men who followed Baal Peor. But you who are clinging to Yahweh your Elohim are alive today, every one of you. See, I have taught you laws and right rulings, as Yahweh my Elohim commanded me to do, thus in the land which you go to possess. And you shall guard and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding before the eyes of the peoples who hear all these laws. And they shall say, only a wise and understanding people is this great nation. For what great nation is there which has Elohim so near to it, as Yahweh our Elohim is to us, whenever we call on him? And what great nation is there that has such laws and righteous right rulings like all this Torah, which I have set before you this day? Only guard yourself and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the words your eyes have seen, and lest they turn aside from your heart all the days of your life, and you shall make them known to your children and your grandchildren. The day when you stood before Yahweh your Elohim in Horeb, Yahweh said to me, assemble the people to me and make them hear my words, so that they learn to fear me all the days they live on the earth, and teach their children. And you came near and stood at the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the heart of the heavens, darkness, cloud, and thick darkness. And Yahweh spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard a voice of words, but saw no form. You only heard a voice. And he made known to you his covenant, which he commanded you to do, the 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. And Yahweh commanded me at that time to teach you laws and right rulings, for you to do them in the land which you pass over to possess. Therefore, diligently guard yourselves, for you saw no form when Yahweh spoke to you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest you should do corruptly, and shall make for yourselves a carved image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, or the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the heavens, the likeness of any creature that creeps on the ground, or the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth, unless you lift up your eyes to the heavens, and shall see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the hosts of the heavens, and you shall be drawn away into bowing down to them and serving them, which Yahweh your Elohim has allotted to all the peoples under the heaven.
Amen. Thank you, Robert. Next up, we have Gwen. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Gwen, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, verses 20 to 38, still in chapter 4.
But Yahweh has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace and out of Mitzrayim to be with his people, an inheritance as it is today. And Yahweh was enraged with me because of your words, and swore that I would not pass over the Jordan, and that I would not enter the good land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you as an inheritance. For I am to die in this land. I am not passing over the Jordan, but you are passing over, and shall possess that good land. Guard yourselves, lest you forget the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, which he made with you, and shall make for yourselves a carved image in any form as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you. For Yahweh your Elohim is a consuming fire of jealous El. When you bring forth children and grandchildren, and shall grow old in the land, and shall do corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of whatever, and shall do with its evil in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim to provoke him, I shall call the heavens and earth to witness against you on that day, that you soon completely perish from the land which you pass over the Jordan to possess. You do not prolong your days in it, but are completely destroyed. And Yahweh shall scatter you among the people, and you shall be left few in a number among the nations where Yahweh drives you. And there you shall serve mighty ones, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you shall seek Yahweh your Elohim, and shall find when you search for him with all your heart and with all your being. In your distress, when all the words shall come upon you in the latter days, when you shall return to Yahweh your Elohim and shall obey his voice. For Yahweh your Elohim is a compassionate El. He does not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of the Father which he swore to them. For I ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that Elohim created man on the earth, and ask from one end of the heavens to the other end of the heavens, where there has been a word as great as this, or has been heard like it. Has a people heard the voice of Elohim speaking out in the midst of the fire, as you have heard and live? Or has Elohim tried to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of a nation by trials and by signs and by wonders and by battle and by a strong hand and in outreach arms, as by great foursome deeds, according to that Yahweh your Elohim did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes. You have been shown it to know that Yahweh himself is Elohim. There is no one beside him. From the heavens he let you hear his voice to instruct you, and on earth he showed you his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them and brought you out of Mitzrayim with his presence, with his great power, to drive out from before you the nations greater and stronger than you, and bring you in to give you their land as an inheritance, or it is today. And you shall know today, and shall recall to your heart, that Yahweh himself is Elohim in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath. There is none else.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Gwen. Next up, we have Caleb. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Caleb, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Excuse me. Caleb, you're going to take us 39. It's okay, we could read it again. It's a great verse. To verse 10 in chapter 5.
And you shall know today, and shall recall to your heart, that Yahweh himself is Elohim, and in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath, there is none else. And you shall guard his laws and his commands, which I command you today, so that it is well with you, and with your children after you, and so that you prolong your days on the soil which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you for all time. Then Moshe separated 3 cities beyond the Jordan, toward the rising of the sun, for a manslayer to flee there, he who unknowingly murdered his neighbor without having hated him in time past, and might flee to one of these cities and live. Best are in the wilderness, in the level land of the Reubenites, and Ramoth and Galad for the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan for the Menashites. And this is the Torah which Moshe set before the children of Israel. There are the witnesses and the laws and the right rulings which Moshe spoke to the children of Israel after they came out of Mitzrayim, before the Jordan in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who dwelled at Heshbon, whom Moshe and the children of Israel had stricken after they came out of Mitzrayim. And they took possession of his land, and the land of Og, sovereign of Bashan, 2 sovereigns of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, toward the rising of the sun. From Or, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, even to Mount Sion, which is Hermon, and all the desert plain beyond the Jordan, as far as the sea of Araba, below the slopes of Pisgah. And Moshe called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the laws and right rulings which I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and guard to do them. Yahweh our Elohim made a covenant with us in Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Yahweh spoke with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I stood between Yahweh and you at that time to declare you the word of Yahweh. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up the mountain, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters under the earth. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahweh your Elohim, I am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing love, commitment to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Caleb. Next up, we have Barbara. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Barbara, who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us verse 11 in chapter 5 to verse 33.
Okay.
You want this one?
Okay. Yes. You do not bring the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to naught. For Yahuwah does not leave him unpunished who brings his name to naught. Guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you. 6 days you labor and shall do all your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat of Yahuwah your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your and your female servant rest as you do. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out from there by a strong hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you to perform the Sabbath day. Respect your father and your mother, as Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you, so that your days are prolonged, so that it is well with you on the soil which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. You do not murder. You do not commit adultery. You do not steal. You do not bear false witness against your neighbor. You do not covet your neighbor's wife, nor you desire your neighbor's house, his field, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, his ox, nor his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. These words spoke to all your assembly in the mountain from the midst of the fire of the cloud and of the thick darkness with a loud voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. And it came to be, when you heard the voice from the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was burning with fire, that you came near to me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders, and said, See, Yahuwah your Elohim has showed us his esteem and his greatness, and we have heard his voice from the midst of the fire. Today we have seen that Elohim speaks with man, and he lives. And now, why should we die? For this great fire is consuming us. If we hear the voice of Elohim, Yahuwah our Elohim, any more, then we shall die. For who is there of all flesh who has heard the voice of the living Elohim speaking from the midst of the fire, as we have, and does live? You go near and hear all that Yahuwah your Elohim says, and speak to us all that Yahuwah our Elohim says to you, and we shall hear and do it. And Yahuwah heard the voice of your words when you spoke to me, and Yahuwah said to me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people which they have spoken to you. They have done well in all that they have spoken. Oh, that they had such a heart in them to fear me and to guard all my commands always, so that it might be well with them and with their children forever. Go, say to them, return to your tents, but you stand here by me and let me speak to you all the commands and the laws and the right rulings which you are to teach them, and they shall do them in the land which I am giving them to possess. And you shall guard to do as Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left. Walk in all the ways which Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you, so that you live and it be well with you, and you shall prolong your days in the land which you possess.
Amen. Just 1 second down. We just have instructions from Rabbi Steve here. We're going to do something a little bit different for the Shema and the V'ahavta here in chapter 6. So what we'll do is I will read verses 1 through 2, and then everyone's going to read together verses 4 through 9. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings, which Yahweh your Elohim has commanded, to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh your Elohim, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim. Amen. That was awesome. Well, I see here verses 1 to 2, it says Steve, and then 4 to 9. But as Rabbi Steve teaches, well, verse 3 comes after 2 and before 4. So that was covered somewhere in between. All right, next up we have Donna. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Donna, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Donna, you're going to take us to the end of chapter 6. That's verses 10 through 25.
When Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land, he swore to your father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that he would give you a land with large and beautiful cities that you did not build, houses full of every good thing that you did not fill them with, wells dug that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. And when you eat and are satisfied, be careful not to forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. Fear Yahweh your Elohim. Worship him and take your oaths in his name. Do not follow other gods, other Elohims, the gods of the peoples around you. For the Lord your God, Yahweh your Elohim, who is among you, is a jealous Elohim. Otherwise, Yahweh your Elohim will become angry with you and wipe you off the face of the earth. Do not test Yahweh your Elohim as you tested him in Massah. Carefully observe the commands that Yahweh your Elohim, the decrees and statutes he has commanded you. Do what is right and good in Yahweh's sight, so that you may prosper, and so that you may enter and possess the good land Yahweh your Elohim swore to give your fathers, by driving out all your enemies before you, as Yahweh has said. When your son asks you in the future, what is the meaning of the decrees, statutes, and ordinances which Yahweh your Elohim, our Elohim, has commanded you? Tell him, we were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, but Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand. Before our eyes, Yahweh inflicted great and devastating signs and wonders on Egypt, on Pharaoh and all his household, but he brought us from there in order to lead us in and give us the land that he swore to our fathers. Yahweh commanded us to follow these statutes and to fear Yahweh our Elohim, for our prosperity always, and for our preservation, as it is today. Righteousness will be ours if we are careful to follow every one of these commands before Yahweh our Elohim as he commanded us. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Donna. Next up, we have Michael. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Michael, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. So our second to last reader, verses 1 to 13 in chapter 7.
When Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land which you go to possess, we shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater, mightier than you. And when Yahweh, your Elohim, gives them over to you, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them and show them no favor, and do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughters to his sons, and you do not take his daughter for your son, for he turns your son away from following me to serve other mighty ones. Then the displeasure of Yahweh shall burn against you and promptly destroy you. But this is what you do to them: break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and cut down their Esherim and burn their carved images with fire. For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh, your Elohim. Yahweh, your Elohim, has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all nations on the face of the earth. Yahweh did not set his love on you, nor choose you because you were more numerous than the other people, for you were least of all peoples. But because Yahweh loving you, and because of him guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahweh has brought to you out with a strong hand and ransomed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mizraim. And he shall know that Yahweh, your Elohim, he is your Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commandment for 1,000 generations, with those who love him and those who guard his commands. But repaying those who hate him to their face, to destroy them, he does not delay to do so. With him who hates him, he repays him to his face. And he shall guard the commands and the laws and the right rulings which I command you today to do them. And it shall be because you hear these right rulings and shall guard to do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and the loving commitment which he swore to your fathers. And shall love you and blame you and increase you, and shall bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land and your grain and your new wine and your oil, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flock in the land in which he swore to your fathers to give you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Michael. Next up, and our final reader for day 1 of the Deuteronomy scripture readings here at Sukkot will be Nolan. He blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Nolan, who has come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. So we're going to go and finish chapter 7, verses 14 to 26.
Blessed are you above all peoples. There is not going to be a barren man or a barren woman among you or among your livestock. And Yahweh shall turn away from you all sickness and put on you none of the evil diseases of Mitzrayim, which you have known, but he shall put them on all those who hate you. And you shall consume all the peoples whom Yahweh your Elohim is delivering over to you. Your eyes shall not pardon them, and do not serve their mighty ones, for that is a snare to you. When you say in your heart, these nations are greater than I am unable to drive them out. Do not be afraid of them. Remember well that what Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and to all of Mitzrayim, the great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders, and the strong hand and the outstretched arm by which Yahweh your Elohim brought you out. Yahweh your Elohim does so to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. And Yahweh your Elohim also sends the hornet among them until those who are left, who hide themselves from you, are destroyed. Do not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your Elohim is great, and awesome El is in your midst. And Yahweh your Elohim shall drive out those nations before you, little by little. You are not allowed to destroy them at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But Yahweh your Elohim shall deliver them over to you and destroy them with a great destruction until they are consumed. And he shall give their sovereigns into your hand, and shall destroy their name from under the heavens. No one is going to be able to stand against you until you have destroyed them. The carved images of their mighty ones you are to burn with fire. Do not covet the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, lest it be a snare for you, lest you be snared by it. For it is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. And do not bring an abomination into your house, lest you be accursed like it. Utterly loathe it and utterly hate it, for it is accursed.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Noel, and thank you to all our readers. We can get a round of applause for all our readers this morning. It is a blessing indeed to read before brothers and sisters, so I'm just going to read the traditional closing blessing, and we'll keep on going. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten ha-Torah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. Okay, so next up, we're going to continue in the Midrash portion, as we do typically on Tuesday nights. And so we're going to start from the beginning. Okay, Rabbi Steve said he's going to be here in 2 minutes, which is good, because I didn't know I was going to do this until 2 minutes before we started. So I'd much prefer for my teacher to come back and handle this portion. And if you're on the live stream, feel free to type in your questions or comments, and either Kurt or Shamash Robert will read them for you. And then here in the room, Dale will have the mic, so you can raise your hand if you have a question or comment. And then typically, Rabbi Steve likes to go from, chapter 1 and then forward, just as we, work through it. And he always, of course, asks, where do you see yourself in the scripture, and how can you apply this to your walk? One of my favorite quotes from a Torah study from a couple years ago, Rabbi Steve says, our Creator left out a lot you might want to know, but he didn't leave out anything that you need to know. So there's a lot in there that we want to focus on, and I know that's the way that Rabbi likes to usually do it. So thank you everyone for coming out, and raise your hand, and Dale will take the mic around. He's over there. Wave hi, Dale. And then on the live stream, just enter in your comments. And I'm pulling the parachute cord because Rabbi is coming up the aisle.
All right, Boker Tov. I have to set the stanza short. All right, so I do apologize that I wasn't here for the morning readings. We had a situation that I needed to be involved with, but I'm very blessed to know that I've got people that could step up and can take a hold of the reins and have things continue. So I'm sure the readings went very well. So somebody catch me up on, the first 6 chapters of Deuteronomy, because I missed them. No, I'm kidding. All right, so you should have taken some really good notes. You should be ready to go ahead and interact about the Deuteronomy chapters that we read today, as we covered chapters 1 through 7, it looks like. Okay? And so we can start and go around the room. We do have a microphone in Dale's hand over there. Okay, so when we do that, as we're on the live stream, Robert and Kurt are trying to keep a hold of that as they go through it. I'm going to look for my notes, because after all, I've done this 5 or 6 dozen times, so I should have good notes here for the first couple of chapters that we could look at. As far as covering that, here we go. All right, who wants to get us started? Everybody. Hands all went up at the same time. 15 hands. Okay, Nate's got his hand up first. And David, I've got your prayer thing.
I didn't see any hands up real quick for chapter 1, so I was going to, if it was okay. Actually, it is in chapter 1. Talking about where Yahweh told them to go into the land, and then Moshe sent in spies and didn't do all these things that Yahweh actually told him to do. He did a few extra things that Yahweh didn't. But then after that, down in verses, I think it's 40 through the rest of chapter 1, they decide that they're going to go in anyway after Yahweh told them not to. But he told them to go in, but that's what you told us to do the first time, but he went to do it anyway. And I don't know how I learned this lesson very young in my life. I was just getting off of KP duty in the military, and we started at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was coming back, it was like 7 o'clock. I'd been up all night, and then I only had hours of sleep or whatever. And my squad leader said to me, he said, Nate, or actually it was Taylor then, Taylor, go take that box and carry it over to such and such. And I was like, looking at him, who's sitting on the ground with all the rest of the squad eating breakfast, and they're not even ready for the morning. And I'm just coming off of KP. I'm like, and I said, why? I looked at him and I said, you've got all these other guys around. They're all well rested. Why don't you have one of them take it? That didn't go over well. But I was thinking I was in the right. Well, I have the right to say that because you're supposed to be a good leader. Now, this is an earthly leader, but something in me, I didn't understand this at that time. I understand it a lot more now, but at that time, something in me said, you weren't supposed to do that. And then I tried to change my mind, because then he was like, fine, I'll have one of them do it. And then I tried to change my mind. I was like, no, you're right. I need to humble myself and do this. And that made him even more mad, because then I still wasn't listening to what he told me to do. And then even more so, something in me broke, that I wasn't doing what my leadership told me to do. And then but this was a worldly leader, so I still had years and years to learn this lesson. And then since coming to MTOI, I've found leadership that is anointed and appointed, and how much more so, I really need to pay attention to what the instructions are. I have trouble with that because I do have quite a bit of yellow in me and other things. So that really spoke to me, that I really need to pay attention to what Yahweh's instructions are through the leadership, so that I can be obedient and not get myself in deeper trouble when I try to recorrect and try to a tap dance to fix whatever problem I already created. So anyway.
Amen. Taylor, could you go get my water bottle, please, in the back table? I needed to put that to the test. I just wanted to see, The rest of you looked like you were well rested, but But I don't see my water bottle here, so I figured let me go send him. Okay. Timing is everything. Thank you. Yep, that'd be good. I really do need that, and I was going to send him anyway, but the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, because my throat is already going. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 1. We said we didn't have a lot of hands go up. Okay, I got something for Deuteronomy 1. Where are you going? You want to go to what chapter are you going to, Waffle? 1. Okay, go for it.
All right. Mine kind of ties in with what Nate says. Is here we have the Father ready to tell them instructions and what to do, and I'll apply this to me. And here I'm so busy talking that I can't hear what he's going to tell me, because I don't like the instructions I'm getting, because I already have in my mind the plan that I would like to follow, and his plan, of course, doesn't match what I already had in mind. So,
Amen. Okay, now we got some hands starting to go up. Are we still in chapter 1? Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Sue from Ohio.
Hi, Sue.
Chapter 1, verse 15, and he says, "And I took the heads of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over the leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of 50s, tens, and officers for your tribes. So one of my previous congregations that I met with was an independent, a splinter group from United, and we were taught there was no leadership, that this was militarily set up, and it wasn't right, and rank is rank, and all those things. That's what I came to before I came to General Steve Burton.
And that gets a salute. And by the way, in case you understand, I am a one-coin general. I could actually be a 5-coin general. I can get more from the back, but you know. Got the one here too. Look, that's a really good point that you bring up, is that you have to remember that there's people out there that want to attack structure. They want to attack leadership. And quite frankly, leadership has brought a lot of this on itself. We've got a lot of very controlling, abusive, cultish, or on the other side, neglectful. They ignore, they don't show any attention. We have all kinds of spectrums of bad leadership. So therefore, we should throw out the whole structure and system because it's been done badly, instead of realizing the structure is not the problem, the implementation was the problem. I mean, the same thing like, look, in this country and many countries, divorce is about 50%. Okay, so obviously marriage is the problem. Let's get rid of it. Oh, you mean maybe it's the people doing it that are the problem? So that's really what we got to see. And yes, this is a military structure. Now, they're not in Deuteronomy 1 putting together the military structure that you see in Numbers chapter 1 when they start doing the census, because they're counting up the age, those ages 20 and above to go to war. So it's definitely a military structure. But at that point, they already had heads of thousands, hundreds, 50s, etc. And if you're in the military, you can even tell me, okay, that's a battalion, that's a division, that's a platoon. I mean, we have those kind of structures now. But what people can miss easily with this is that these people, it says that, first of all, who appointed the leadership? Did the people vote for them? No. Who appointed them? The anointed appointed. And so you don't self-appoint. And this is what the problem is out there. There's a lot of self-appointing. Now, the anointed appointed also noticed that these were men who were heads of the tribes, wise men and known, men of reputation. They had good reputations as being leaders. Okay? And he made them all take the color code. They all came out red. Just saying. But the thing that we have to get at is that it says here that they were heads over. So, did they have authority over the 1,000? You betcha. Over the 100, over the 50, over the 10? But we don't want a head over us. But they had heads appointed over them. And you know that the heads of the hundreds, guess where they were? They were reporting to the guy who was heads of thousands. So the heads of 1,000, I bet you he had under him 10 guys who were heads of hundreds in a very military structure. And so everybody was under some authority. It wasn't like the head of thousands was equal in authority level to the head of 100. Because this is exactly your military structure. And so each one fit underneath the other ones as you work your way back up the list. And so we have to decide that, let me start again. This shows us how he wants us to be prepared for having headship. Because all of us are under the headship of Messiah. And if we don't learn how to be under headship, we're going to have a real problem with our relationship vertically with the King of the universe. Because that is a vertical structure. And nobody voted him in. You have no say in this. And we got to remember that. I mean, this is really important. And so he gives us humans to interact with, to practice. And so, by the way, Nate got to learn in his story that it didn't matter his opinion on it. It was a lesson he needed to learn, whether or not it seemed fair or logical to him at the time. See, but it happened because he needed to learn that lesson, not because, he was already tired or this or that. As a matter of fact, it may be because his head that was looking at him was impressed with where he was going and how he was growing and wanted to put him even harder to the test. Sometimes when you're picked on by a head, it's because they believe you can do more, because they see your potential, so they expect more. All right, I've given David an awful lot of things already to do since he's been here because I see potential in him. And so I've already had him checking people in. I had him step up here. I had him doing marketplace. I have him running all over the place. And you know what? He hasn't said a complaint or a bid because he needs to understand and know that's grooming, being groomed for something. And for me to see, well, what have you got? If I'm going to groom you for something, I see what you're made of. Got to run you through the paces a little bit. And so that's a really key piece of that. So thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate that, Sue. Okay, in the back, Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan from Michigan.
Hey, Dan.
So the children of Israel came against the big walls and the big people. And in verse 29, then I said to you, have no dread or fear of them. Yahweh, your Elohim, who is going before you, he does fight for you, according to all he did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes. So I'm just wondering if you could expand a little on have no dread or fear of them. I mean, it's a simple, sounds like a simple command, but fear and dread being huge things that we face, that is, how does that play out for me?
No. Next question. Somebody always gets that. If you've been at these before, you know that somebody's going to get one of those. Okay, the key here is what? What's going on in these two verses? The key is he's saying, why would you have fear and dread? Why would you have that when I've already shown you that I've pulled you out of something and I didn't pull you out of it just to kill you? Because the second part of the next part of the verse is the key part. When it says, look, why would you do these things? He says, because I, Yahweh, I'm the one who's going before you to fight for you according to what I did in Mitzrayim. In other words, I didn't do all that just to bring you out here for you to die. Well, you know what? Yahweh didn't run you through all the things you've been in through up to this point in your life just to have you, implode and not be protected and all those other things. Does it make sense? In other words, he's saying, don't forget what I've already done for you and use that as the confidence to keep you from the fear and the dread. Because he knows our tendency to panic. That's what fear and dread essentially is panic. He said, why are you panicking? Didn't you see what I did to the Egyptians? Didn't you see what I did? Yeshua said the same thing to them a couple of times. Well, didn't you see what I did with the fishes and loaves? Didn't you see? Why are you so little belief? Didn't you see how I calmed the storm? But yet we panic. Well, we believe in our Creator up to a point. We do. And so he knows that we're going to be allowed to be in situations where he's going to test, to see, and prove, not just whether it's in our heart to keep his commandments, but whether or not we're going to trust him. Do we trust and believe what he's told us? And that's what he said here. He says, look, he says, have no dread or fear of them. Yeah, you're going to go against things that are going to look totally beyond your capacity. Anybody face any of that? Stuff that looks like and appears to be way beyond your capacity? But yet, if you look back on your life, even if it was just recently, you can see he's done some things to show you there's no need to fear. Go back and listen to the Fear of Yahweh teaching a few times, because that's the same concept that you find in there. So does that answer your question, Dan? Okay? Sometimes it's the rest of the verse you have to say, okay, what else is happening here? He's saying, there's no reason to fear because look at what I already did for you. Not look what I did. It's not like he said, well, look what I did for those guys. He's saying, look what I already did for you. So why would you be afraid? This is what I did for you. I did that for you what? So you can come out here and get killed? And yet, what did the people say to Moses all the time? Oh, what'd you do? Bring us all out here so we could die in the desert? We could have had that in Egypt, where we had the leeks. They must have had different leeks than we have now, because I like leeks, like in a potato leek soup or something, but it's not that big a deal. The leeks. I mean, if they said we had chocolate, I'd understand, There's no chocolate out here in the wilderness. Back in Egypt, we had chocolate. See, that one, I could get that. No, I'm teasing. But the leeks, we had leeks. But understand, that's what he's trying to tell you. See, the people did the opposite, didn't they? They said, oh, you brought us out here, just to kill us in the desert so we would die. He said, no, Yahweh did not do what he did just to bring you out here to die. Well, that makes no sense. But we're not logical, rational people often. We're often very irrational and illogical. So he's trying to get our attention to say, look, you're a part of a journey. And in that journey, Yahweh has at some point touched you directly, called you, opened your eyes, opened your ears, and pulled you out of some things. And he didn't do that so that you would die. Now, you might lose friends and family over it a little bit. But you know what you're going to get? New friends and new family. I mean, And some of you were pretty happy that happened. Because you had enough problems with your family before that anyway. Somebody was like, yes, I have a new family. Thank you, Yahweh. All right? And some of you were real close with your family before this all happened, and it hurts a lot to lose all those things, and that's true. But he provides. He provides. Okay, who's next? Okay, Robert?
Hello, everyone. Rob Wyatt from Panama City. Just to continue on, throughout my life, this is just this walk until I found you guys. In verse 32, it exactly the way I was. I just didn't put my trust in Yahweh, who was going before us in the way. It's just to continue on what you were just saying. It was the trust. I just never trusted him enough to know that he was doing it for me. So.
Yeah. Look, that's why it's sometimes good to even go a couple of more verses forward to see what the whole issue is. What's the issue? Not putting trust. He didn't call you out to ruin your life. He didn't call you out to kill you. He didn't call you out to wreck everything and all that other stuff. He called you out so that you could have life. He called you out so you wouldn't be still walking forward in the wrong direction. But you're still walking forward. You just thought you're going the right way. Anybody ever been on a road and you're going around, all of a sudden you realize, I'm going the wrong way. Now I'm going to spend another half an hour because I'm going to lose time going back the other way. That happens. But you know what? Instead of getting mad, be happy you figured it out then instead of another hour later. So at least you got to fix it sooner than later. Who's next? Okay, Daweed.
Hey, I just, there's been, in my research on Scripture and, trying to figure out the dates that certain books were written and things like that, in the academic world, they have all kinds of different stuff. And a lot of the stuff we know, it's basically a bunch of crap. But the thing is when it comes down to...
It's a technical term.
Yes, exactly. But when it comes down to the book of Deuteronomy, they don't lump it with the other 5 books in the academic world. They basically say, oh, it was written around the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Well, one thing that was taught by the Christian world, which I kind of sort of accept, with Rabbi's correction if needed, that basically, for an example of Yeshua, he was either a liar, a lunatic, or he was who he was, he said. One of those 3 things. Well, with the book of Deuteronomy, you have basically the same thing. It's either a liar, the truth, or the person who wrote it was a lunatic. Because right here at verse 1, it makes a claim. It says, this is the location, the specific location where these words were said. All of these words in this entire book. And also even the specific date. And it came to pass in the 40th year. The 40th year from what? Mitzrayim. In the 11th month, on the first day of the month, were all these words spoken. That's its claim to authenticity. And you have to either accept that as truth or accept it as a lie. One of the two.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Okay, who's next? Okay, we got hands coming around this way. Mr. Rabbi Tom. Good morning, sir. Whoop. Your mic wasn't on.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Good morning, Rabbi. I wonder if I could go to chapter 2 quickly. Is that all right?
Yeah, I've got more for 1, but I can go backwards after you're done. Go ahead.
Okay. Something that impressed me here was in 2:4, Yahweh tells the Israelites to be on guard, and then in verse 5 he says, do not strive with them. And then down a little further, he says, do not destroy.
Well, you know what? It's funny because I'm gonna agree with you, but I'm gonna just alter something in there. I don't think it's so much that, obviously we don't want the abscess. We have fear, though. Okay, we're afraid of the pain. We're also afraid of the unknown because we don't, especially if you've never had one before. I've had several root canals. They're not that big a deal. But the thing is, before I had the first one, people scared the life out of me. Oh, it's awful, and it's this, and it's that. And I'm like, ah. Then I went and had it done, and it wasn't that big a deal. The tooth dying was much worse. I mean, the pain I was having when it was already dying, that was awful. I was glad to get the root canal. But I'm just saying it's fear. It's the false evidence appearing real. That's fear, right? F-E-A-R. And so then we make decisions, and then we end up not doing what we need to do. And so until it gets so bad, we don't have a choice. That sounds like, and if you don't obey me, I'll turn up the heat 7 times. Life is built that way. If you're not going to do what you need to do, it starts to get harder and more painful until you finally get up and do it. And that's kind of that motivator. Remember we talked about being motivated. And so that should motivate us to do things. Okay, who's next? Okay. Barbara?
Yes, I'm going back to what Dan and Rob were referring to. About 6 weeks before, Sukkot, we had registered, to come. And I did it without knowing how we were going to get here. And when I called Rabbi, he said, just fly into Chattanooga. So for the next 4 weeks, I just lived in fear and doubt. What do we do after that? How do we get from the airport to North Carolina? And the Chattanooga airport was in Tennessee. And so I lived like this, and until I finally said, Barb, give it up. Leave it in his hands, because you can't do anything about this. So as it turned out, we're here in one piece, and we're having a wonderful time, and we're very, very grateful.
All right, look, this is another piece of that whole idea of if you have found a good structure with good leadership that you believe is anointed and appointed, meaning that Yah is working through them. And I don't mean that in like a, the church likes to take, I'm special because God is talking through me. None of that nonsense. But if that person's being worked through, then you should be able to trust them. If they say, hey, just come and it's good, then you should be able to just come and know that you're going to be taken care of. And what she didn't know was she was going to get the rabbi limo service and get driven personally by me there. Because if I didn't, and that's the thing, is that I said, just come, I'll make sure it's okay, even if I'm the one who has to do it. If I find somebody else or some other way, that would be, but you should be able to trust that and have not had that 4 weeks of anxiety. And I think somewhere along the way in the beginning, I told you, it'll be okay, and it's still, but you didn't know because I didn't give you details, you wanted the details. But you don't need the details. That's how Yahweh works. When he said to Abraham, get up and go, did he tell him where he was going? No details. But he said, look, just trust me. Okay, so, this is something that, again, with leadership, over time, you should be building that understanding of trust. If I tell you it's going to be okay, then it's going to be okay. Now, I would only tell you it's going to be okay if, A, it's something that I really feel he's led me to do that, or I know personally that I can make sure it's okay. That one way or the other we'll make those arrangements. And a lot of you that are here, were here because I told you it would be okay, it would work out, we'd get that worked out. And you don't have to raise your hand, but there's a lot of you here. But you have to learn to trust that. And you have to be okay with that. Because we have that fear and that doubt and trust issues with good reason, because we've been through structures that drop the ball. And we're not used to having people that you can rely on and who come through like they say they will. Okay? And so I feel bad that you had 4 weeks of stress, but I wish you'd have called me, because I would have told you I would never let anything not, because some of these guys out there got like size 14. Now, these are 6.5s. Okay? Go to a store, try finding those. That ain't easy, I'm telling you right now. Most stores don't start anything smaller than an 8. So, anyway, where's the mic? Daweed.
Yes, sir. I'm bringing this not necessarily as a challenge to what you said, but I'm asking it because I had a previous impression of what Lashon Hara is. If I remember correctly, you stated that Lashon Hara is an effort or I was under the impression that regardless of intent, if one is spreading another's personal information, whether it be true or not.
Appropriate, although I wouldn't call it evil speech, more inappropriate to share somebody's personal information, even though it's not necessarily causing harm in your mind. Like, well, what's wrong with that? I mean, you do live in Florida, or you do live in California. Well, but I'm just saying it's theirs to give. It's theirs to share. So yes, in some way that's still causing harm, whatever it was. Okay, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would fit into that category. Just realize that that person may feel harmed. They may feel that that is wrong. So be really careful when you share personal information. And it doesn't have to necessarily, as Daweed said, it doesn't have to be negative necessarily. But the point is, it can cause someone harm. And so again, we have to be very careful when we talk about other people. And by the way, Yahweh takes this really seriously. And so if you're ever on that end of you're sharing others' personal information, or if you're sharing something about somebody that you believe will harm them or shame them or whatever else, be careful if you think that somehow you're justified in some way. Oh, but I'm helping this, or people need to know, or whatever. There's no justification. Okay? There's right channels. Okay? And so you don't just go to everybody and anybody. You have to go to the right people. And you should know who that is. You should go to the leadership. Okay? MTY has a very large and diverse leadership. So if you have a problem with one of those leaders, let's say you're in one of the smaller congregations, or with me or anybody else, if you have a problem with anybody who's in the leadership, there's other leadership that you can go to. No reason to go to the body. Okay, so let's say you're in a congregation and you're having a challenge with that leadership, that information to you, what should you do? You should say, hold on, time out, I'm the wrong person. See, but no, you think it's interesting and exciting and you want to know. Ooh, what? No. Really? I can't believe that. Oh, it's unbelievable. How do you even know you're hearing the truth anyway? Did you ever get suckered into something like that only to be so embarrassed because it was completely wrong? Because we are all Olympic gold medalist conclusion jumpers. Give us just this much information, okay? And we will jump to whatever conclusion. Could you also realize that if you are hearing information, that person sharing it may have an agenda? You might want to figure that out too. Oh, maybe they have a personal axe to grind with the other person. Let me tell you something. I'll give you a little insight to counseling, okay? I'm counseling 2 people. We'll make it easy. It'll be husband and wife, because they never have conflict, so we'll use them as an example. Okay? And so it doesn't matter which one. We'll say the husband first or the wife, doesn't matter. So the husband says, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah. And I say, okay, just so you know, sir, I can promise you at this point, I still don't know what really happened. Then the wife goes, blah, 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 blah. I said, ma'am, I can promise you too. I still don't know what really happened. I have a feeling that some of these 4 things that you both agreed on probably happened because you agreed. If you both agreed, well, that's probably true. But I want them to know that when I hear them speak, that they shouldn't be trying to convince me of anything because I wasn't there. And so they could both be wrong because they have agendas. And those agendas filter what they're saying. They're angry, they're frustrated, they want to get their pound of flesh from the other person, whatever it is. Be so careful not to believe that when you've heard anything that you actually know what happened. Oh, but you're so quick. Oh, I am so mad at so-and-so. Do you know what that person did to that person? I'm like, do you know what they did? How do you know what they did? Were you there? No. So then why are we talking about this? Right? I mean, let this be a really good lesson. Now, this is some of the stuff we're going to talk about in the couples class so we understand relationships and how things go. Oh, but I know so many of you will spend time so mad at other people because of what someone told you they did or told you they said. And you weren't there and you don't know. Oh, but it's your friend. They would never lie to you. No, they're not lying to you. They're talking through their filters. And you think of that as being, well, they would only tell the truth because they're not actually lying. No, I'm sure they believe 100% what they're saying. Through their emotional filter, that's how they saw it. That was their experience through their filters. Some of it may be true, some of it not, but how do you know? Oh, well, because it's my friend, and I have to take his side, her side, whatever. Take her side or his side and say, go fix this with the brother or go to a leader. Why are you talking to me about it? Have you talked? First question you should ask is, have you talked to them about this? Well, no. Well, then why are you talking to me about it? Well, I wanted your advice. My advice is go talk to them. Well, I don't want to talk to them. Okay, then talk to the leader. Why are you talking to me? I can't fix this for you. I got nothing I can do. But see, they want you to be on the bandwagon on their side. They're forming a posse. They want to get everybody against that person and on their side. Isn't that what happens? And shared it with one, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's Lashon Hara. And that's how it plays out. Let's be really careful with that. Unless you were there, and I'm going to put a little caveat on the end. Unless you were there and witnessed it yourself, you have no idea what really happened. And even if you were, you only saw it through your perspective. You may not know the background that caused what you saw. You may have walked into it in... Anybody ever walk into something that was already happening? And then turns out you got it all wrong because you didn't get the beginning of it? So you just don't know, even though you saw it and you were there. And you'll say, well, I was there and I saw it. Well, you there when it started? Well, yeah, I was. Well, do you realize it started 4 years ago? Maybe what was happening started 4 years ago. And you're seeing it pop up again. Well, I was there when it started. I mean, they were just, and all of a sudden this thing blew up and I was there and, oh yeah, but the thing that blew up, do you know when that started? Yeah, when I was standing there. No, that could have been 20 years old. An ongoing problem. See, we have to just be really so reluctant to get involved in these things. It was 12. Watch the movie Saturday night. You'll get what he said. Frederick yelled out, he was 12, 12. That was the horse deal from the beginning of Fiddler on the Roof. He said the horse was 6 years old, but it was 12. Okay. But you have to be at the beginning. You don't know when the beginning was. Okay? I got husbands and wives still dealing with stuff from before they got married. Well, you know, when I first met her, or when I first met him, I was like, oh, goodness. You've been married 35 years. You haven't figured this out yet? Why are you still holding on to this stuff? But then you walk in on it and you think you know what's going on. 35 years of history and you think you figured it out because you were there for the 5 minutes they had a fight. They probably weren't even fighting about what you saw. Something else happened, the day before that this is some little dumb thing that sparked it. They're really still mad about the thing from yesterday or 20 years ago or some other thing. Let's be careful. I mean, I know this is really not exactly the Torah portion, but I think this is really important stuff. I mean, the body has to grow up. And part of our immaturity is how quick, different way. Anybody ever, now you don't have to raise your hand, anybody ever do anything that they don't want everybody to know or they are embarrassed about or was wrong or bad, but you're not that same person anymore? Do you want to be considered that other person anymore? I mean, all of you should be able to raise your hand for this. All of you have changed a lot. Okay? I've had some of you when we've had men's groups and talk saying, I've done things in my life, and I'm never going to tell you because I'm not that person anymore. But that stuff was pretty bad. I've had people talk like that in the men's groups. I'm not going to name who, but there are lots of people who have said it, lots of things. But you know what? What did Paul do? He was killing the believers. What did David do? I don't know. He committed adultery and had the husband killed, right? I mean, we got some of our heroes that made some pretty bad choices at some points. But then they changed. They're not the same person anymore. Can you say that Shaul, who planted all those congregations, was the same guy that was killing everybody? No. King David, who we love and hold up so high, did he change and grow and repent? Absolutely. So let's be careful too, because some people, I know there's a bunch of people in your life that if they met you right now, they would like not even recognize you because they remember you the other way. Can we agree? All right, just important stuff. Okay, where's the mic?
Hi, I'm Laura from Ontario. Really good message, and now I have to remember what I was going to say.
The mini sermon kind of confused.
It has to do with the leadership because one of the things that I've learned, and I'm pretty new to MTOI, is evil and chaos are sort of melded together, and evil comes out of chaos. And perhaps what Yahweh was doing when he set up the structure of leadership in this chapter is to bring that organization, to bring people out of that chaos so that they could be in his right rulings and righteousness. And today there is so much chaos in the world that it's nice to be able to have a place like this to come that we can find that harbor, that safe harbor.
Amen. I appreciate it a lot. Look, in the beginning, there was tohu v'bohu, chaos and confusion, basically. And out of that, he brought order, structure. I went through a trip through Canada, I guess it was a summer or two ago. And one of the things I did on that trip is I went to each of the body. And people said, well, it's this and this and this and this and this and this. And all these things, that the body does that causes problems for itself or why it doesn't work, all the issues in the body. And I said, is there any one single underlying cause of all this? And ultimately, it always came down to there's no leadership and structure to make it stop. It's a simple thing. It flourishes because there's nothing to make it stop. You ever watch children with parents that don't discipline them? Are they ever going to get any better? Not until somebody makes them stop. But they have to be made to stop. There has to be a structure that says, you can't do that here. The body has very little of this. Because they want me to do it. I said, how can I do it? They're not in this group. I have no authority over them. And even if they were in this group, I wield that authority very, very, very carefully. Because I've had people ask me to make people stop doing certain things. Individuals, I said, no, that gets cultish. I can teach. I can guide. If they come to me, I can give them counsel. But I'm only going to make them stop if what they're doing is causing harm or confusion to the rest of the body. If it's only hurting them, they're going to have to figure it out. Otherwise, we cross that cultish line. But I thank Laura for saying that because that is the biggest problem in the body. And you see in Deuteronomy, what did they need to have first? Structure. When they came out of Egypt, what did they put in place first? Structure. Right? It was Yithro that said to Moses, hey, you need structure, buddy. This thing is a confused mess, and you can't do this all yourself. So we need structure. Of course, we've all had problems with that. So it's a real tough kind of deal. So that's where this idea of tasting comes out in scriptures. You need a taste of it. Go and take it. Try it. What could go wrong? You don't like it for a while? I've had a couple of couples. I said, look, let me work with you, but I want you to give me a year. Give me a year. What do you got to lose? You're going to divorce anyway. Let me work with you. Let me help you. Give me a year. And you know what? We got that couple still here thriving instead of divorced. Okay? And I don't take credit for that. I give them credit for being willing to let someone help them. They actually had to work everything out. I didn't fix everything, but I got them to talk. I got them to hear each other. I got them to validate each other. I got them to do what they needed to do. So this isn't me telling you how great I am. But they had to be willing to let me kind of force the issue a little bit. No, you need to validate what he just said. Oh, you need to validate what she just said. Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what she said? Are you paying attention? And made them work together. I said, you got to give me a year. Give me a year that as soon as the fight starts, call me first before you guys kill each other, and let me get involved and make sure you're hearing each other and listening to each other. Well, give this structure some time and see what happens. A lot of you are like going to come, stay for a while, and leave, and you never called for counsel once. Oh, but you're so busy. Will you stop that? I don't want to get mad at you guys, but I'm so tired of hearing that. I'll put a smile on. I am. Do you think Moses was busy? Do you think any leader like Paul was busy? Of course we're busy. But if you need, I promise you, we'll find time for you. Oh, but I sent you 4 emails and you never answered them. I don't have time for that. Pick up the phone, do a Facebook look, if you Facebook message call me, it will ring on my phone. And I will answer. Dale, how many times have you done that? Right, and don't I answer the phone? Okay, and if I don't have time, I'll make another schedule for you. And again, and if it was urgent, I made time for you right away, and if it wasn't, I said, well, we'll do it another time. So stop using, well, you're busy. Do you want your ministry sitting around just eating bonbons? I mean, what do you want me to be doing? I'd like to be doing that. I like bonbons. The ice cream ones? Oh, they're good. I could eat a whole container with those little things. Much better than leeks. If they had bonbons in Egypt, I might have wanted to go back. I'm kidding. Okay? All those frozen eclair things that we used to have at services for Oneg. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. I could eat the whole container. All right. So let's just keep that in mind. You know, I know you guys hear this so much from me about structure, but can we not admit that really is the problem? Isn't that what Nate was talking about when he started us off with his first comment about learning to deal with leadership and structure? Okay, we're still in chapter 1. Do you know, years ago, we used to read and stop and comment and read and stop and comment. And thanks to Rabbi Tom, he said, we never get even remotely close to finishing what we were supposed to read for the day. Why don't we read it first and then talk about it? So praise Yah that Rabbi Tom, and that'll show you I listen. I could take advice. It was brilliant. It was appropriate, and we changed because of that. Where's the mic? Okay, back here. Okay, Sherry.
Thank you. One of the things that was really impressed on me is it seems like most of my life, and probably for some of you, has been that we've always been we felt like we weren't perfect enough because we didn't do it as well as someone else. And all our life we've been told that. And it really struck me when I was reading verse 36. It said, except Caleb, son of, getting down, because he walked and followed completely. Well, at first, I didn't really look at it that way. I looked at it, he followed perfectly. And that's what came into my mind automatically. And I thought, I'd love to be like him, just follow things, follow Yah perfectly. And then the more I looked at it, I thought, no, he followed completely. And in our walk, so many times when we have that perfectionist attitude, it's kind of like if we can't walk perfect, well, I just want to give up and stop, and then I kind of pull myself together and say, okay, I'm going to try better, but I get very discouraged. And so it's kind of like a mind change when I realize that Yah really wants us to walk it out completely the way he says to do things. We might not do it perfectly, but he's looking at whether we want to walk it out the way he wants us to. And he will give us the ability to walk it as we walk it out completely the way he wanted.
Amen. Look, that idea of completely, well, first of all, the donkey in the back is completely getting on my nerves because he's texting me while I'm in the front, so. Somebody go give that donkey a carrot or a sugar cube or something. He's like, Rabbi, are you busy? But before that, a few seconds ago, he tried to call me. Yes, Curtis, I'm standing right in front of the stage here right now. I didn't see you in the back at first. I'm like, we're in Washburn. What are you doing? What do you need? Then I look up, and you're right there. That's the nature of our relationship. And now somebody is calling me, and it says unknown. Hello, we're live on YouTube. Hello? Okay, I'm in the middle of a meeting. Telemarketer. Now famous forever on YouTube. Timing couldn't have been better as we were talking about this, right? The phone rings. Okay. This idea that Sherry brought up about completely, okay, I think that has to do with the understanding of fullness. In other words, I'm not just doing some of, or at least making the effort to do some of. Because some of you are pretty good now with Shabbat, but you haven't quite got the feast thing down yet. Or maybe you've got the Shabbat and the feast thing down, but you still got some food issues. Or you've got some, whatever it is. He wants us to do all of it. He doesn't expect us, Deuteronomy 8:2, right? He doesn't expect us to be perfect at it. He expects us to want to be perfect at it. That's the kind of the idea, that he shows and we demonstrate in our heart that we want to do this thing right. So that's a good point. And that's the idea of completeness, fullness. Okay? It's an all. He wants us to try to do all of it. Make that effort. Okay, who's next? Okay, Gary?
Shalom.
I still got like 3 verses or 2 things that I've said every time we've done Deuteronomy chapter 1, and nobody's got it yet. Now that some of you
told them they could not come to Sukkot, and of course it's not M2I. The person, I have tried to explain to them, this is the benefit, and they're asking for someone to hold them accountable. But how can you hold someone accountable who's out on their own? And the problem, I've explained over and over, no matter how much I've tried to explain to them, the fruit that I've seen of what M2I has, the pride and ego the person has keeps them from wanting or the ability to come to a leader or to submit under something that can bring what they're asking for. But they're wanting some accountability and some, basically, like Rabbi said, a pound of flesh that you can't get. You need to submit to an organization and a structure, and I'm so glad that what we've had for so many, and I can't encourage people enough that swallow the pride and go to an organization that has structure, and M2I offers that, and it's clearly outlined. It's not zigging and zagging. They're clear on what they expect. Rabbis put forth the expectation, and they're consistent. You can trust it, and if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it, and that's what this person wants. But yet, for years, they just keep asking me, and I'm like, all I can keep is redirecting them to the structure that I've submitted to.
They're afraid.
And they are absolutely scared to death. And Abba is going to continue doing, as Rabbi said, 7 times 7. I've seen the thing spiral since about 2016. And 2 years later, it just keeps compounding. The marriage has gone. The things that they're involved in now is a wreck. Now you can't even attend a Sukkot. How much more?
I mean, look, that's absolutely it. People, they want something fairly badly, but they're too afraid to do it. They're really too afraid to do it. Look, and part of it is, and this is why you tell people that they should taste of it, okay? Because, and also the way you are in your interactions. When I meet you, you want me to be meeting and getting to know you as you are right now, and with the understanding that you're growing towards becoming like Yeshua. Whatever you were yesterday or before, it's irrelevant. We all have a before. We all have experiences, but are you willing to now try something new and be something new and grow into something new and give something a chance? And that's really where it comes down to, you know? And all of a sudden, other people that should know better than I'm up here, like my phone's like lighting up. Hey, Steve, go ahead and give a private Marco Polo to the woodchuck and tell him that I'm on stage right now, okay? Well, you could do that from outside or whatever. Just let him know. All right, where is the mic? Okay. Did you figure out the two things that I usually cover that I didn't cover yet?
I'm sorry, Rabbi, I didn't.
Oh, wait, Steve thinks he did. What two things? No, that's not the one. Okay, next. All right. Take the walk of shame out to the back of the room. He said verse 16, 17 about, I mean, obviously that's something we covered. That's not the two key ones. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just thinking the children of Israel had that fear at the sea. Yahweh led them through. And then they had that fear to go into the land. So in comparison to us, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where do we get that fear from? They got it, I mean, they were raised in Mitzrayim. And where did they get that fear? And then bringing it forward to us, where do we get that fear? And what are we?
Experiences with, you're going to start to associate, oh, this looks like, feels like, seems like that other experience. Now I'm afraid this is going to go the same way. Because it triggers that response. Okay? I've had people come to me and they've been quite disturbed because I said something or had a look on my face that reminded them of a father or a husband that had that look on their face. Whatever it was, you know, and it triggered that. I've had husbands and wives have that problem where something either one would do would trigger something from something before they were husband and wife. Because of a tone of voice or because of a certain food, or it doesn't matter. It's an experience that triggers something that you already have negative connections to. So that's where the two fears come from. A fear that this will be like before, even if the before wasn't exactly the same, and the fear of, I don't know what's going to happen. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. All right. We still got plenty of time. Where's the mic? Okay? Just stand up, and if the light's on, it's off. So just push the button.
Okay. Sorry. I'm Donna from Florida. And there's such a life lesson in this chapter 1. But the part that really drives home, it's an add-on to what David said. And it starts out in, Yahweh says to them, 21. See, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Go up and take possession of it as Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, has told you. Do not be afraid or discouraged. And then you find the verses all that follow is exactly, he through Yahweh's lead says, go ahead and go search it out. Look for yourself. You know, I'll let you look for yourself. So they do, but they're told to go up. And so the 2 that went up out of the 12 saw them as little ants. They were the giants and all were, it was easy. We can do this. So Yah said go, and we can do this. But the other 10, they never went up, because he says in verse 26, but you were not willing to go up, rebelling against the command. And so because they didn't go up to the higher place to see what was going on, they were down like in the lowland, the valley aspect. And so in the natural, if you have a giant standing next to you, he looks huge. And you can't overcome that. And so in their own eyes, that's what they saw. But if they looked up for the vision of Yah, they would have seen it wasn't difficult, and it is a good land. And they came back with good fruit and good report. And then it's interesting, like you were saying, because of the bad report from the brothers, okay, your own Mishpachah, they got discouraged and terrified. It's just like when you were talking about the abscess. The bad report of all the people with the root canal, it caused you to be terrified and intimidated and all of that. And that's what we do as humans, you know.
Amen.
So what I see in this is that, you know, we need to really believe what he says and trust him. He's a covenant God. He's not going to break his covenant. And he is everything. He's faithful and trustworthy and true. And so if we can remember that, even if we don't know what the unknown is that's coming, we can still walk forward in faith. So
Amen.
I just want to add that.
Appreciate that. Okay. By the way, Chuck said it was a pocket call, and he said waffle, waffle. There you go. That was his. Or I should do it like Chuck. Waffle, waffle. There you go. So you got that for you. Too many people have my cell phone number. All right, where's the mic? Okay. Paula? Well, push the button.
I'll keep it real simple. Verse 17 spoke to me, and do not be afraid of anyone's face. That was real significant to me as far as learning to submit to leadership. And to me, that means all my past perceptions, all the product of all of our inputs, all our triggers, all our past programming. There comes a point, and at my age, you just got to let it go and make the next right decision, you know, and trust somebody and not waste their time by playing victim or that's about where I'm at.
All right, thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. You know, isn't it interesting that verse 17 points to Deuteronomy 17? Did you catch that? Because verse 17 says, and if the matter is too hard, you'll bring it to me, and I shall hear it. So that kind of points to Deuteronomy 17, and that's chapter 1 and verse 17 of Deuteronomy. So that's kind of an interesting play on numbers that Yahweh sort of allowed human beings to kind of put together. Knew it. And actually, we get it twice in here, pretty much. So the first one is in verse 6, when he says, you've dwelt long enough at this mountain. You've been going around this mountain long enough. That's chapter 2 and verse 3 as well. You have gone around this mountain too much. That's enough. Do you have anybody have that in their life where you've been going around a mountain too much and it's about time to get moving? Anybody remember me talking about that each time we've done the Torah portions? Okay? You're going to have to start to recognize that you have to stop just going around that mountain. You've got to take what you're learning and go and apply it and do it and go forward. That's the transforming process. It's not just, to me, that's I'm reading and I'm studying and I'm not doing anything until I understand it perfectly. Well, no, the mountain is where the information was given. Right? What happened at Mount Sinai? They received information. They needed to take it and leave the mountain to start the transformation and the relationship that comes to walking it out. So let's remember, he said to them, look, you need to stop walking around the mountain. You've done here long enough at this mountain, the mountain of gaining information. Some of you are stuck there. Be careful with that. And the other one was almost hit by you, Donna, which is the go in and possess. I want to focus on the word possess. Okay? You've got to take ownership. You've got to say, this is for me. This isn't something I do. This is something that was created for me and me for it. It's not just something I'm trying and testing. Okay? You ask a Jew, why do you keep the Torah? And he says, I don't understand your question. Because I'm a Jew. I mean, what kind of dumb question is that? But if somebody asks you why you keep the commandments, you should have the same answer. Because that's what he made it for, because I'm a human being. I keep them because that's what we're supposed to do. It's not something, so we talk about that you want to be a human being Torah observant as a human doing Torah. Okay, possess this, own it. Not own it means that you can now alter it, change it, and manipulate it in some way, but own it as being for you. Your Creator loved you enough to give you this. Possess this. That's the key. It's a mindset. It's an emotional thing for you to get past this idea that it's something that was given and you can play with it or do it or not do it or this or that. No, it is what you were designed to do. It was designed to help you function as created by the Creator, as a manufacturer set. This is not just a bunch of, like a government choosing, well, these laws might help us work better in our functioning in this city or in this country, whatever. You have laws. No, you were designed to not steal from each other. You were designed to have your Sabbath off so you can refresh and be rested. You were designed to have feasts. You were designed to not eat certain things. You were designed to not, bear false witness. You were designed to not commit adultery. You were designed to not make idols. This is how you were designed. And so he gives us our instructions. Possess that, own it, and realize that it's for you. Okay, those are like the two big things that I had in chapter 1 that hadn't gotten hit on. And so how many of you remember that now when you go back to the Torah portions? Okay? All right, who's got the mic? All right, anybody want to go to chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Because now we only have about half an hour to get like 6 more chapters in. Okay, Dale's coming around. Okay, go ahead and give it to Bill.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
I noticed in chapter 2, verses 10, and I think it's chapter 10, or verse 10, that the Moabites had driven out the Anakim before, and they were cousins, as well as the children of Esau and Edom also had driven out the giants. And here their cousins are coming. Why wouldn't the Father continue in the manner in which he's taking care of the children of Abraham?
Okay, I'm not really sure I understand the question. So we have here, okay, verse 10, let's see. But the descendants of Esau dispossessed them and destroyed them from before there. There is saying that the Emites had dwelt there formerly, a people as great and numerous and tall as the Anakim. I'm not really sure it shows that that it was the Moabites. And actually going in the land. Because remember, these are peoples that are in between. Between Sinai and the actual land itself, what was Israel's role? Come on now. To bring judgment on the peoples that Yahweh had not brought judgment on yet. They were his hand in destroying and ridding the land of those peoples that had brought upon themselves these judgments at some point in the past that Yahweh was using Israel to bring those. Anybody understand now what I'm talking about? So they were the sword of Yahweh. Thank you, Kirk. That was a good point. They were the sword of Yahweh. There are other verses in other places that talk about how these people were going to be dealt with by Yahweh, and he uses Israel to bring those judgments on those people. He didn't just say, you're in the way, kill them all. Israel was the sword in the hand of Yahweh. Does that help with the question, Bill? They were being used for this. And so how he planned it out and who was supposed to be done and in what order and how he decided who not to do and what not to do had to do with his judgments. Okay, they were in the sword in the hand. So he said, leave these people alone, destroy these ones. Leave this one alone, destroy that one. It had to do with his judgments that they had brought on themselves. But notice that judgment wasn't necessarily, this is kind of the hard concept for us human beings. Human beings we're caught up in this thing called time-space. So we think of, well, if I did something and something didn't happen back right away, well, I got away with it, or there is no direct connection. Well, these are peoples that were receiving a judgment of Yahweh for maybe something that happened way, 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 way earlier. But Yahweh knew he was going to use Israel as the sword. So they were there, and Israel was brought through. And so that's kind of the thing, is to understand that was their role, because it wasn't just these people are in our way trying to get to the land. Because they weren't at the land. Not yet. They were getting there, and they had to go. Now they had to dispossess some of them that were in the land, and they had to be thrown out. But there were also people in the way on their way. They had both of these things going on. So it wasn't just, it's like when the Americans came here, let's just get rid of all the Indians that are in our way. Well, that was terrible. That's just as wrong can be. But that's not what Israel's doing here. They are going to a land that belongs to them, and they didn't just say, sorry guys, this is ours, you need to leave. They were getting judgment wrought on them. these were all peoples that, I don't know if there's a better term, deserved what they got. We don't know why. Some of the things we might know, there's little hints here or there, but we don't necessarily know why. We just know that Yahweh is bringing judgment on the... Well, that was rude and awful and mean and horrible. Could have gotten the Israelites out of Egypt without destroying Egypt? Sure he could have. But he had, I'm going to bring my judgments against them. Okay, so it has to do with judgment. So just realize that the peoples that he said not to do, he had his reasons. The people he said to do, he had his reasons, but it had to do with his righteous, right rulings and judgments. Where's the mic?
Brothers to put fear into their hearts and to talk them out of going in and possessing the land. And now, this generation, sometimes I try to imagine what it would be like, let's say I was 15 years old when they had to turn back and go back for another 38 years in the wilderness. And I'm watching all the older generation die off. And I'm saying, I'm not going to let that happen to my generation. I really want to go in. And so he says, I'm going to put the dread and fear of you upon all the peoples under all the heavens. And let me just turn over here a second here. Okay. And then, like you were saying, Israel being the sword of Yahweh, as he did with Pharaoh, Sichon, the sovereign of Heshbon, Yahweh hardened his heart to give him into your hand. And I guess the way I apply that today is sometimes Father allows us in our walk to be a witness to somebody, and we don't realize that we're actually a sword in his hand. Maybe not to kill them, but to kill their flesh, to bring that sense of conviction upon them. And so when we see the opposition getting really, really hot, he said, I wish you were either hot or cold. They're suffering the most opposition from others toward our walk.
Not necessarily people in the body. It's like the people that are attacking you, Abba's creating a lot of fire in them because, people are they cannot let it go. They're obsessed. They're because he has used you to stir something in them. Not that he used you because you went and tried to tell them something. Just when they found out what you were doing, it sparked something. And it disturbed their peace so much. Well, again, be aware that not your calling and your job to go and convince anybody of anything. But life happens, which means that when you get invited to do something on Shabbat and you say, I can't because it's Shabbat, that might really stir somebody. Not necessarily in a good way, because Abba's using that as a way to put them through some fire or whatever it is and deal with some of their internal issues. I don't know. Too much. Because otherwise you will then start taking you'll be making active participation decisions that might not be the right ones. Just let it kind of play its way out and be ready to be available. Don't jump on it and start aggressively doing anything. Try to bring shalom. Pray for them. That's the best part, what Shira said at the end. Pray for these people, because it could be that Yahweh's trying to get their attention and they're just kicking against it. It just could be the enemy trying to keep a hold on them and kick against it, whatever it is. Remember, the system, look, let's put it this way. How many of you have gone out and listened to, even since now, any mainstream Christian teachings where they're talking about, they're trying to convince their people not to listen to Torah observant people? Why are they so afraid of us? I mean, after all, if they believe that the law is done away with and they taught their people the law is done away with, and everybody believes that, so why should they be afraid of talking to you? Oh, but they're so aggressively against that. I mean, they're so aggressively working against that. And there's a reason why there's such an opposition and a backlash. They know somewhere deep down at an unconscious level, this is a threat to their whole worldview. Remember we talked about in one of the teaching where I talked about the sword popping the delusion bubble. Is that what are you thinking? Okay? That's the problem. Okay, we start threatening people's delusion bubbles, they can get violent. That really becomes a big problem. Okay, who's next? David, okay.
Not from headquarters, so I'm going to double dip while we're here.
Okay.
Because Edmonton is far. Actually, thing, as Rabbi explained it in the Torah study, that it's a collective, that together as a nation, that's when the other nations have the dread and the fear of us. We can't do it on our own, but we are called to be together. And as we know from Deuteronomy 28, we know from other parts in Scripture that it's a collective act. It's not a solo journey. And I think that's really cool this week just to see a tiny little splinter of what that would look like, all of us together, that we have each other's backs and we're supporting each other, and it's formidable, whether it's the dancing, whether it's the praise team. I mean, strength in numbers. So I think perfect segue from there is that we are called to be a people together, and that is when the fear, it's not us puffing our chest up individually, because it's not going to work. And then just quickly in chapter 4, I just want to say that whole chapter you explained beautifully in the Are You Listening teaching, and how that Israel was supposed to be connected to verse 25 of chapter 2. We were supposed to be the end.
Well, Arthur's got his hand up all the way around the other side, trying to keep the
mind is again verse 14. And what did Yahweh say to Moses? And Yahweh commanded me, which is Moses, at that time to teach you the laws and right rulings for you to do them in the lands which you possess over to possess. So basically he's asked Moses, a human being, to do the teaching for him. And that's what goes for today. Now if we go to chapter 5, verse 1, what does it actually tell you? And Moses actually obeyed. And Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear Israel, the laws and right rulings, which I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and guard to do them. So basically you see instruction from Yahweh. Moses listened as a human being and did the teaching.
And then he told the people they needed to learn. It sounds like a name of it. Learn and teach the Torah. That's another one we're going to redo. It'll be 37 parts. Okay.
And we're learning. There is always that opportunity or that temptation to turn left or to the right. And we have our brother Judah on one side that has added to, or even in some ways tries to take away what Yahweh has commanded of his children of Israel. And then we have on the other side where we might want to try to turn back to where we have come from. So I just want to encourage the brothers and sisters, stay on the narrow path, trust the leadership, submit to leadership, learn Torah, so that we hear it, learn it, teach it, all that good stuff that Rabbi's trying to educate us in, so that we can be a light. Don't turn to the left or to the right. Don't be tempted by the things that our brother Judah might try to distract us from keeping, and don't be distracted by the other things. Try and sit and learn. Forget everything you've known. Learn from somebody who's been there, done that, and is teaching us correctly.
Amen. Appreciate that. And you were fishing for understand it, do it, defend it, teach it. That's your 4 things that we hope to do with the teachings. You got to understand it, and you got to be doing it, and then you should be able to defend it, and then be able to teach it all. And by teach it, that doesn't mean standing in front of a microphone or having a website and a YouTube channel. It simply means you should be able to explain to somebody what it is and where they can find the verses and where the information is. Okay, who's got the mic next? And by the way, I want you to understand, for those watching online who maybe knew it, all this and everything else, not excited necessarily, Nate especially, not excited at all about leadership, okay? I mean, he can tell you that right from the beginning, the first words he said to me was, well, you're selling, we ain't buying, something like that. He did. After the first sermon at the first Sukkot he was at, he said, just want to let you know, what you're selling, we ain't buying. We're not interested. But now listen to what he just said. And so this is a good little while later. And he did give us that, he did give me that year. And I asked him, I said, give me 6 months, give me a year. And you see, give it a chance. And so you're hearing from somebody that didn't just walk in here like all ready to just buy into anything. It was the complete opposite. So you might want to talk to some of the people that have gone through that kind of a journey and say, why did you go up to them later and say, well, why did you feel that way? What brought that about? Did you start out believing that, or how did you feel initially? And you get a great testimony. And it's about what Yah's doing. And that's why, it's not about, this is never about MTY and whatever. It's not. Okay, not thank you for supporting M2I, but thank you for what you see Yahweh doing through this ministry. Because if you don't see Yahweh doing it, then keep your money. I mean, it's not about the ministry. It's about him. You see him doing a work that you want to support and that you believe is where your tithes and offerings are supposed to go. Too many ministries start to grow and get bigger and bigger until the next thing you know, they're out there puffing up how great we are. Look, and to reach those that are disconnected with access to leadership and structure and teachings. And if we're doing that, we appreciate that we have that opportunity. But this is not about, uplifting, how great an organization is. Because if there's any greatness in here, it's because of what he's doing. Amen? Okay, because I've watched a few ministries get pretty big, and the next thing you know, they're having people come up on stage saying, yeah, this ministry changed my life. It's not this ministry. It's, when Nate says, when I decided to recognize an anointing and come under leadership and see what structure could do for me and how the Father could work there, that's different than that other type of a testimony, okay? Just always like to say that there, because I just don't want, there's certain lines I want to make sure we never cross. That this never becomes an ego thing or a pride thing or look at how great we are thing, and somehow it's about this human thing. Okay, where's the mic? Dawid?
Thank you. I wanted to back up what my brother Batuek Reese said. He touched on something that's very close to my heart, because when I was among the Orthodox for a period of time, not to get too distracted by them, but it became quite clear that keeping the Torah is not an individual thing, although there is an aspect of that. But if you have absolutely no community you're a part of, and you're not under any authority structure, it is impossible to properly keep Torah. It's just impossible. Everything about it is meant to be not individualistic, but community-oriented.
Well said. Well said. I appreciate that. But that's why we have Sukkot. And that's why we have live stream, to give at least a virtual community until we can provide something more physically actually there. And that's why you should be absolutely, I'm more concerned with your second tithe than your first tithe. Why would you cut yourself off from having the funds to come and practice community living? Get to know each other. I mean, I know so many of you have met each other here and are going to have some long, long friendships because of people you met here. Okay? And that's about finding family members and people you didn't realize is closer than a brother, closer than a sister. Because that's what we're building, is a family. Isn't that what Yahweh's doing? He's building what I call the forever community. If you're not doing that tithing and then you're like, well, I can't afford to go. Well, did you tithe? Well, no. He gave you the way to do it. He even commanded you to go have fun and have money to spend on it. Can you beat that? He commanded you to save money to go have a great years now ago. I only get 2 weeks vacation and I always take my family to Disney. I said, the mouse doesn't need your money. Mouse has got plenty of money. But why would you prefer to go to Disney than come here? Why would you prefer that? Definite priority problem. There's a shift that needs to be made in that head. Look, I need to go on another vacation because this isn't a vacation for me. I work almost every waking minute while I'm here. But this for you guys is a vacation, so don't laugh. The only problem was the machine was broken this past time, and I wasn't happy about that. But understand, why would you rather go on vacation anywhere? If you only got 2 weeks vacation, you got unleavened bread, you got this. The only problem was the machine was broken this past time, and I wasn't happy about that. But understand, why would you rather go on vacation anywhere? If you only got 2 weeks vacation, you got unleavened bread, you got this. Why would you not want to? Aren't we looking forward to the forever of this? So why wouldn't you want to do it now? Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. Okay, where's the mic? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dennis from Boston. Yeah, this is definitely a blessed vacation for me. A lot of times there's stress, nothing but stress when you go on vacation with the world. But for me personally, just to understand better the order that we're talking about, to do the four things, I know that nowhere in Scripture does it say that we're supposed to understand things first, then go out and do it. I know that Yahweh gave Moshe all the commandments to